All right, we are back with another Michigan edition of Real Talk. Jeff here. Dan, how are you, sir?
What's up, buddy?
Not much, man. Ready to talk some Michigan football? It was a pretty good weekend for me, football wise. Patriots won, Michigan won. That's always a good weekend. Obviously, I know your Raiders are sitting 2-0 too, so you're flying high. Your teams you haven't witnessed a loss yet. So
No, my pro team's doing good. My fantasy teams are doing all right, and Michigan's still winning, so we're good on my end.
gosh, man, you just walking around 10 feet tall over there.
I'm
Well,
basically Randy. I'm basically Randy Marsh with the wheelbarrow holding my you know what.
okay. Oh boy. Well, we got tons of stuff to go over today. We got Northern Illinois, we got preview of Rutgers, we got mailbag questions, we got some discussions. We got a little bit of Ohio State top 25 full episode here. Let's go ahead and get her underway. So obviously Michigan, they take care of Western Michigan week 1, and then week 2 they take care of Washington. Week 3 they got Northern Illinois, and they take care of business there, winning 63-10. Um, 100% a ground attack again. Nothing special there. Um, 370-ish yards rushing, tons of touchdowns. I think they ran for 8 total rushing touchdowns. The biggest story I think that a lot of fans are going to want to talk about is there was some passing, but still only 11 attempts, so not a ton. But again, this isn't a very credible opponent. We won't get too much into it. What did you think in the little bit of time that we've seen the first stringers in there and passing the ball and running the ball? What did you think of Michigan this weekend?
Another weekend of being pretty effective on the ground. They passed the ball about the same amount as they did against Western.
Yeah.
We got more JJ McCarthy, about the same sample size. A couple. I think he had 6 pass attempts. I think he had the same amount in Western, whatever. But overall, pretty solid. We'll get to the other side of the ball here in a second, but defensively, um, only giving up 46 yards passing and 161 on the ground to Northern Illinois. And what I thought was kind of interesting was it wasn't until actually preparing for this that we only had the ball on TOP 1 more minute than they did, and probably is because we were running the ball so effectively, we're scoring quicker. But pretty neck and neck on the time of possession, and I'd figured that Northern Illinois might have passed the ball a bit more. I don't know. The game was kind of maybe a little weird in that sense of their play calling, but can't be mad. I mean, we did it in all 3 phases, and obviously the passing is still not really in the game plan a whole lot, but I mean, it is what it is.
Yeah, I mean, truthfully, there's not too much you can really argue about when you're running it. You're running it over 300 yards a game. That alone is astronomical, and the team never punted last Saturday. So, I did they pass for a bunch of yards? No. Is that going to be an issue? We'll we'll probably discuss that a little bit later. Um, but overall, I'm happy with what I'm seeing so far out of Michigan. I am the most optimistic I've been in a long time. I'm still taking it one game at a time. Shockingly, I thought for sure I would have jumped on the Michigan wants Bama, but I'm humbling myself, and I know what's to come. We got Wisconsin in 2 weeks. We got Rutgers this week, who's 3-0, and we can get right into that. How is Rutgers 3-0?
Well, Rutgers. Well, sorry. Before you want to do that, you want to do what we our 3 points or no about?
Yeah. So what was your good out of this weekend?
All right, so I'll do all 3 of mine real quick. So what I did
Yeah.
like was our special teams punt return. We had AJ Henning back there. He took 5 for 70, averaged 14 a pop, and he had a 32 yarder on one return alone. So that's what I did like. What I didn't like was our defense. I guess. I mean, we only acquired 1 sack. but they only passed the ball 17 times. So when you're only
Mm.
dropping back 17 times, I guess you probably want a little bit more. But I mean, a sack is a sack, I guess.
Did they have a sack?
They got 1 sack and 0 quarterback hurries.
I have them down as 0 sacks.
Did I read that wrong?
I couldn't find a single sack. I don't think we got a sack.
I got.
Regardless, no pressure. I actually have that too.
Okay.
That's actually my bad. So spoiler alert.
No, you're fine. So, that's what I didn't like, and what I want to see more of is kind of piggybacking off of that is creating more turnovers. They have created 2 turnovers in 3 games. Again, 3-0. Hard to really argue about being 3-0 and undefeated, but Washington, they didn't create an interception on Dill Morris, who I talked about before. I thought they would have done that because he's had some interception troubles in every other game besides U of M, but they did cause a fumble recovery. Western didn't force a fumble or an interception, and then obviously here, apparently, you know, I missed that sack, but they did get the 1 interception. So that's what I want to see more of is just more turnovers and I do give the credit to Jermaine Green for the interception. Obviously, we've harped on their secondary dating back to last year, and so he got the pick this time. And so yeah, so sorry, yeah, those are my 3.
You're good. So we actually have a lot of similarities this week in that sense. So for my good, I kind of have 2. So I put use of AJ Henning, meaning in the punt return games, in the wide receiver screens, the rushing attack, the end arounds. What they're doing with AJ Henning, I think, is huge. Just to add another weapon, another speedster to your team, and truthfully, I mean, obviously everything is armchair quarterback, but I can't help but think to myself, why the heck was Ronnie Bell returning punts?
Right.
You know what I mean? It's just like, dude, this AJ Henning kid seems like he can really play. Another thing that I have is good. Jim Harbaugh. I'm just digging what I'm seeing out of Jim Harbaugh right now. The interviews, he seems to be more enthusiastic. The way he's conducting himself, the way that this team is rallying around him, and I think honestly, sometimes it's just good to overhaul staff. I know that sucks; people lose jobs, but sometimes it needs to be done. And I'm not saying every time you lose, you need to fire people, but it was stagnant in Ann Arbor, and it seems like there's life. So the good, I love what Jim Harbaugh is doing right now. AJ Henning. The bad is defensive intensity / no sacks. I couldn't find a sack. Regardless, the defensive intensity. I understand it's not going to be what it is against Ohio State because you're playing Northern Illinois, Western Michigan, and you're up big against Washington. I get that, but again, we're playing an undefeated Rutgers team this week, who I'm not trying to overlook. We have a road game at Camp Randall here in the next 2 weeks. We need to get the defensive intensity up. Aiden did have 2.5 sacks against Washington, but this past week I didn't see anything that jumped off the screen to me. We need more intensity out there. And then to see more of, we're going into Big Ten play. We need to see more passing. I understand we can run the ball. We're very good at it. I get it. Okay, but there's other teams that can score, and you're not going to be able to just run the ball if you're down 2 scores. God forbid a running back fumbles, and a team like Ohio State or Michigan State or Wisconsin or Penn State, all teams that are playing really well, they go up 14-0. You can't just expect to run the ball to get back in those games. You got to be able to pass it. And not that we've been effective outside of maybe the Washington game. Cade's been really good. So no turnovers from him. Things are promising.
Right.
But like I said, we're gonna play 3-0 Rutgers this week. Let's you want to talk about how we got there?
Yeah. So anyway, yeah, Rutgers is 3-0, and they got Greg Schiano back at the helm, and so this team right here last year took Michigan to triple overtime, and we talked about in the preview pod. It took Cade McNamara's spark to rally the troops and take over at the end of the game. And right now at this year, I want to point out too, Other than Bill Melton, who the receiver is, who's got 2 touchdowns and over 220 yards receiving, and their quarterback, who's over 600 yards passing, 4 touchdowns, no picks, their defense has 14 sacks in 3 games. So even though they've played Temple and blew them out, even though they went on the road and beat Syracuse by 10 points, and then they blew out Delaware, I think 14 sacks is pretty impressive. Now Michigan is light years in talent, far better than Rutgers, but I feel like I think Michigan needs to not overlook these guys and to prove that last year was complete bullcrap. And I think if 14 sacks is tallied up on the Scarlet Knights, I feel like there's some substance there. I think Michigan is going to have not a huge test, but at least a little bit better competition than what they faced so far. Now, granted, Washington, there's Washington. You can call them what they are, but their defense is still pretty good. So that's why Rutgers is 3-0, man. Their offense is clicking, and their defense is creating havoc.
Yeah, I looked at the spread earlier today. Michigan is favored by 18.5 in this game. Now, while the defensive line is very good, as you alluded to, 14 sacks, so that's something to keep an eye on. So their secondary was actually pretty good too, except they did just have 2 players suspended from the team.
Yes. Yep.
And including their top corner. There was some off the field. I think there was maybe an arrest. You can read more into that.
A paintball gun, I think.
Oh boy!
I think Greg Schiano confiscated a paintball gun or something. They must have been pegging houses or something. But yeah, get back to it.
Jeez Louise. Well, those players are, as of right now, suspended and doesn't look like they're going to play Saturday, which, I mean, if Michigan's going to attack the air, I mean, them without their top corner, I would assume that I would have to like that matchup. I don't know. I think initial predictions, Michigan's going to find a way to win this game, but I hope it's not find a way. I hope it's comfortable and get yourself in a great groove. And hopefully, I don't want to beat the dead horse, but hopefully get some sort of passing attack. I guess the one thing that we're probably just like overlooking is the fact that like when we do try to pass the ball, we're pretty effective at it. So it's not needed as much, So it's not like they don't want to go in and throw the ball 40 times because you potentially let these teams in it. So hopefully when the time comes, if we need the passing attack, it's going to be able to work. I like Michigan to win this game and probably primarily on the ground. Harbaugh said in most of this, basically his goal every game is to throw for 200 and run for 200. That's pretty much his goal every game, and he's been running for over 300. So dominant fashion. What do you think? You have a prediction for this weekend? Obviously, we both in the preview we called Michigan, but we know more now.
I feel like 3 touchdowns is pretty doable. Again, I'm in the beginning here. I'm giving credit to their defense, but I think Michigan, the way they're rolling right now, I think Rutgers is going to give them, I think, a battle in the first quarter, kind of like Western did.
Yeah.
I think Michigan can take this by 21 points. Hence why the spread is about that. So.
Okay. I don't have a ton to go in on this game outside of our predictions, and we talked about their defense and how I think we're gonna attack them. But what do you think? You think we'll see more of a passing attack this week? You think we'll see the same old, same old? What's your opinions there?
The way it's going, and how confident Harbaugh is, I don't think we're going to be passing the ball unless we absolutely have to. I don't know. It seems like in the beginning part of Jim Harbaugh's era, it seemed like he was trying to dial back the playbook and not show a lot. Now I think it's just because he feels like that's a huge strength. And I'm going to ask you a question later, kind of about this, whatever, if we get to it. And I mean, it is what it is. I just don't think we're going to be passing the ball unless we have to. Now, that's talking about this game. When we go to Camp Randall, I almost feel like no matter how good we run the ball, I think we're going to have to pass the ball. It's you don't want to be on battling on the ground the whole game with Wisconsin. That's I think gonna get you kind of in trouble at some point. But
Yeah. Are you ready for some mailbag questions? We got a couple on Facebook page here. So
Yeah, fire away.
yeah, first one comes in from our buddy Jamie Lado here. Is this the best O-line group Michigan has seen in the past 20 years?
The best O-line group, I say, to be determined. The reason why I say that is because the 2006 offensive line was pretty phenomenal with Jake Long. You had their interior was pretty solid. They had, even before 06, I mean, Michigan had a couple of Remington Trophy Award nominees and winners. David Boss, who played with the San Francisco 49ers, was a award winner for that position. So I say to be determined, but I'm going to have to say the 2006 offensive line was pretty anchored down. And I mean, Mike Hart was, I think, almost guaranteed 6 yards a pop if he ran left,
Yeah. So, Jamie, thanks for writing in. To be honest, I think this is almost disrespectful to some of the offensive line groups we've had. I think a lot of people are getting confused with the offensive line play. Don't get me wrong, it's been good.
Mm-hmm.
The quarterback play and the running back play has been exceptional, and a lot of people would be like, well, you could correlate that with offensive line play. I want to just back up literally like 2 years, okay? So just a few years ago, and you can help me, you're better with stuff like this. Cesar Luis, Michael Luño, who is the left tackle on that group? He's in the league right now. This is literally just 2 or so years ago. Regardless, there's literally 4 of the 5 guys from the offensive line just 2 years ago are in the NFL and playing.
Mm-hmm.
Bad quarterback play out of Shea Patterson, John O'Corn, all those guys. This is a good group. Don't get me wrong. We're seeing great stuff, but I don't want to sleep on the fact that we've actually had good offense. I was just talking to my father-in-law about this. It's really funny. Michigan has had good offensive linemen, and they've had good offensive line play, but a lot of people just assume it's been bad because Shea Patterson's throwing picks and John O'Corn's throwing picks. Let's not forget what this group just did to Chase Young 2 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
He came into the Michigan game and was non-existent.
Yeah,
this team has good offensive line play and has for years.
Well, especially if you talk about the 2019 Michigan Ohio State game, Chase Young was essentially neutralized, and a lot of the talk that season, not just from the Michigan game, but Chase Young there was a couple of games where he'd almost disappear, kind of like how Jadeveon Clowney did, and they're like, oh, it's because he's being double teamed. I'm like, I mean, if you really looked at the film, I mean, I'm not saying I sit in the middle of the night and I watch film for hours on end, but just by watching the highlights, you can tell that sometimes Chase Young looked like he kind of took some plays off, or it just wasn't effective. In that 2019 game, he wasn't really that effective. So
yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
and I don't mean to slow down the momentum here, but I mean, just like when we talked about before, like with about Harbaugh being on like this polarizing figure, is while the results haven't been necessarily great for Michigan on the field, he's putting guys in the NFL every year. And I had mentioned in the preview, like Josh Uche, Kwity Paye, those guys were getting high praise from the coaches this year in OTAs and everything like that. And a lot of that is now coming down to, well, was the system the problem, or are these players the problem? And it's looking like it was the defensive system and Don Brown not putting these guys into positions to succeed, because, they're getting in the NFL and they're making impacts. Even Michael Dana and in Kansas City is being is a pretty critical rotation player in their linebacking core. So I just think that you just got to pay attention to these guys. Now these guys are being in to succeed. But sorry about that. But yeah, the offensive line, bar none, I think there's been plenty better.
That name that was skipping me, by the way, Jalen Mayfield was another big name.
Yep,
I mean, Michigan has had very good offensive linemen over the last 20 years to answer that question, Jamie. Is this a great group? Yes. Are they playing together? Yes. Are we seeing production? Absolutely. And your answer to be determined. Also, his second question, he asked too. Can Corum's TD numbers can Corum's TD numbers keep up and put him in the Heisman talk? So answer that first part. Can they keep up?
Can his touchdown numbers keep up?
Yes, meaning 1 to 2 to 3 touchdowns a game. I would assume that's what he means, right?
Yeah,
Because that's what he's getting.
Right. As of right now, I don't see why it should change. But if he wants to be in the Heisman conversation, I feel like in the Big Ten, you're gonna have to put up touchdown numbers, kind of like how James White and Melvin Gordon did, and even Monty Ball, where you're going to be close to the 20 mark. Okay, I feel like that's a pretty decent barometer. You know, Mike Hart, 2000. You know, all 4 seasons, Mike Hart was a Heisman contender. But what slowed him down was his touchdown numbers. He had the yards, didn't have really. I mean, I think one season he had like 18. Cool, that's phenomenal. But to get to the Heisman level, you need to at least be at 20 or a little bit more.
I disagree. I think 5, 6, 7 years ago, yes, what you just said, 100% accurate. The Heisman has changed. You have to basically be on a winning team, so 2 or less games lost, okay? And then are you the best player on said team? And if those numbers are good and they're eye-popping, then I think you'll be all right. Could he score 17 to 18 touchdowns this year? If I'm not predicting, I'm just saying if Michigan loses 0 to 1 games, he would be in the Heisman talk with that. You know what I mean? I think that ultimately would get him there. Do I think he can win the Heisman without scoring 20 touchdowns? I don't know. I don't think so. Then again, I mean, over the last several years, we've seen it be extremely quarterback heavy, and the only people that beat quarterbacks, let's see here: Devontae Smith, Alabama; Derrick Henry, Alabama; Mark Ingram, Alabama. There's a couple of running backs off from Alabama. They all get 20 plus touchdowns. So to your credit, you already said that 20 plus touchdowns is probably where you need to be. I don't disagree. I think I just disagree with the fact that he can get in there as long as they're winning, and that'll be determined.
Right.
Next question comes from Cody Kroger. Is this the deepest running back room Michigan has ever had?
Well, you know, that's a good question because
it is a great question. It is a great question.
I really looked into it, honestly, and Michigan has had some 1, 2, and even 3 deep for, 100 years. In terms of production right now, again, it's only 3 games, and we haven't even gotten to Big Ten conference play yet. But in terms of production, I think that, you know, Michigan, I don't think we've had 2,000 or 2 1,000-yard rushers at specifically running backs in probably a long time, if ever. I mean, you know, there was a tweet that was out about, you know, who was the last, you know, whose season was the last best running back before Mike Hart, or was Mike Hart the last one? And I was trying to make a case for Fitzgerald Toussaint in 2011. Now, granted, I think he only just had barely over 1,000 yards, but he didn't start or come on until Big Ten play. He put all those up pretty much in conference play, and him and Denard Robinson combined had like 2,500 yards on the ground or 2,200 on the ground. So in terms of just pure running backs, again, TBD. But you know, when Mike Hart had Brady and Miner behind him, I've said those names before. I think that tandem right there is pretty solid. But granted, they didn't have 2,000-yard backs because Mike Hart was literally an all down back, every down back. But set for right now, I think these guys can be pretty historic. But again, TBD, of course. But what's your take?
I was quick to dismiss the O-line question because I feel like Michigan has been slighted in that way. They've had great O-lines. The running back rooms, I don't feel like they've had as much success. And I think what you just said is you said, Fitzgerald Toussaint and Denard Robinson. Denard Robinson was a quarterback.
True.
It's just like we haven't had multiple good running backs in my fandom. And it starts roughly it picks up in 2005. So in 17-ish years, am I getting that right? Yeah. Yeah. 17-ish years, we have not seen 2 backs. And I think like the quickest I could come up with 2, and they weren't good. Miner and Carlos Brown during Rich Rod, he was using 2 backs. Obviously, Mike Hart was pretty much all Mike Hart, and then you get some slop seconds from people. Denard, it was pretty much Denard, and then whoever was the running back with him mostly was Fitzgerald Toussaint. I can't remember two backs that were been so dominant. And I think to answer Cody's question here, as he says, is this the deepest? Because the third running back is a 5-star freshman, Donovan Edwards. I dismissed the lineman one, but yeah, I think this is the deepest running back room Michigan has had that I could come up with. I'm super impressed by this group. Now, I don't want to crown these kids after 3 games, 2 of them being MAC level opponents. But this is a good group, and this is why I'm so optimistic. Because not only is it a good group, it's led by who we would proclaim as a Michigan legend. He's literally our childhood. Like, the reason we are Michigan fans today, Mike Hart. And ultimately, I think the way he's using them is almost perfect. I don't know if it could be used better. So, yeah, great question. Thanks
before we bounce to the next one though, real quick, is that just reminded me of like, I mean, we had 2 5-stars on the roster at the same. I don't know if it was on the same period, but very close, maybe missed by a year. But Derek Green, who never.
I knew you were going Derek Green. I knew you were for some reason going Derek Green.
What's the guy's name? Kareem Walker, who transferred. I feel like I remember like Brady Hoke. I don't know if it was Jabril Peppers. I think it was Derek Green. I think apparently Brady Hoke was almost in tears when Green committed, and then granted the offensive line wasn't the greatest in the world, but I think he was barely averaging three yards to carry. So, but yeah, again, it just depends to me. It's like, are you looking at production standpoint or just simply just talent? Because Kevin Grady was Mr. Football out of Michigan, and Brandon Meyer was a 4-star. Again, remains to be seen. But anyways, I don't want to keep taking up time on the running backs. Move on.
You're good. This one comes in from a guy named Daniel Nazar.
What's up?
Will Miami ever be good again? So this isn't a Michigan question. This is a Miami question. This is obviously Miami taking the L to Michigan State. First off, this is a layered question. But will Miami ever be good again? Yes, they will at some point. But they got to get a monster hire. And for whatever reason, SC, Texas remains to be seen because obviously they just hired Steve Sarkisian. But not South Carolina, Southern Cal and Miami have not got the coach right. That's what it comes down to, right?
Yeah, and a coach that I really thought was going to work out, but kind of got ushered out. I don't know if there was a catalyst moment or whatever that took place to happen, but like Mark Richt when he left Georgia and he went to Miami, I thought that he had the turnover chain. They had some swagger, and just kind of fell off after that. And then now they got, I think their coach right now was their defensive coordinator or something, Martinez or something, Manny something, or Garcia, I can't remember his name, but that's his school, I believe, and I feel like now, lost their fan base. You watch the games, and even if they were to try to get a home run higher, maybe it would change things. But I watched that game against Michigan State. There ain't no Miami fans there. There's so many open seats. No one's bought in, and they got their quarterback Derek King on a transfer. I think he was from Houston or whatever, and he was supposed to be some hot shot. And I mean, he's got the stats, but they don't. They just don't win any ball games. And I mean, if Miami's ever going to be good again, man, they got to get an Urban Meyer level type of guy. And I feel like they have to go back to the roots of what made them Miami in the 90s and 2000s, where they start hiring the undesirables or recruiting undesirables, the ones that have a lot of off the field issues. I mean, you got to try something here, because they have no swagger. No one's afraid of them. They got a decent preseason ranking, and now they're just kind of gradually falling off the map. And I mean, the ACC isn't really that great anymore outside Clemson. I mean, I don't think it'd be a necessarily horrible job to take,
The thing is like, before my fandom really took off, and then into the beginning of my fandom, they were Alabama.
Yeah, look at their alums, man. Like they had so many great players go through there, and now of
If
them
if I
hardly
were
any are in the NFL.
if I were to give you 25 players from the beginning of our NFL football fandom, okay, and I'll just start shitting out names. All of them are going to be from the U. Like literally all of them. Ray Lewis, Reggie Wayne, Frank Gore, Andre Johnson, Santana Moss. I mean, literally, those are all, Sean Taylor, Willis McGahee. I could go on for days. And Jeremy Shockey. There's so many good guys.
Right.
And now, if you flip the script and say, okay, start naming great players in the NFL today, we just named a few a second ago. Derrick Henry and Mark Ingram, they're all from Bama. It's a completely different script now, and even South South California, Southern California. That same with them. SC has not been a desirable job since Pete Carroll left, and they haven't been putting the kids in the NFL, and they've been replaced with Clemson, Ohio State, and actually Oregon on the West Coast has been that school that's putting in kids. Are they putting them at the same level that USC was? No, but they've definitely had some hits. Heck, Oregon has put in Mariota, Herbert. Is that it? Mariota and Herbert
for just quarterbacks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who's SC put in? Mm-hmm. They used to be the quarterback. Palmer, Sanchez.
Darnold.
Okay, Darnold. Fair enough. I forgot.
Other than that, you're right, because it was Leinart, or it was Carson Palmer, Leinart. Then they had Mark Sanchez for 1 year, and then they had I heavily invested in college football back in the mid 2000s. I remember they had John David Booty. He was there for like a year. Yeah. But after Sam Darnold and before Sam Darnold, like a couple years there, and then between, yeah, you're right. Yeah.
Matt Barkley.
Okay, so yeah, we're forgetting about him, but he's off. He's gone now, pretty much.
Yeah. All right, this one comes in from Brad Eppert. This is his father though. This is the senior.
Okay.
Bloody asks, do you believe Michigan is for real or just a product of the weak teams they have played thus far? You're the perfect person for this question.
Well, me personally, I've said it before, man. Back to last year, man. I gotta see it to believe it, and I came close in 2018. I came close after they smacked Wisconsin. Came close to jumping on that wagon again. But am I happy with the 3-0 start? Yes. Am I impressed? Yes. But they have a huge test ahead of them, and I hate to keep giving TBD out there as my answer, but man, it remains to be seen. And we've seen this story before. Not necessarily how they're playing ball right now, where it's strictly the run game and using that as their identity. But man, it's kind of like how my Raiders are. Like, I want to buy in. Okay, I got my chips close to being the all-in pot, but I have to see more. And in 2 weeks, whether Wisconsin is ranked or not, on the road win in Camp Randall, which has been a long time coming, I think that'll be a very, very good test of where their bar's at.
Yeah, so I have two ways to answer this. First way is Michigan for real? Part of me thinks yes, and here's why. They're not winning. They're 3-0, but they're not winning these games 24-7, 24-3. They're not winning these games 35-28. They're blowing these teams out. Everybody they've played, they are blowing them out, and they're winning with an identity. What more can you ask of a team? A lot of times you see a team and they're struggling, offensively, defensively, they're struggling to win games, and you're like, what's their identity? Do they even know what they are? Do you even know what your team wants to do on a weekly basis to win a football game? And right now, Michigan does know what they want to do. They want to run the ball down your throat and they want to control the clock, and they're not going to turn it over. They're not going to beat themselves. So that's what we've seen so far, which is great. Love that stuff. But are they for real? Because what does for real mean? For me, for real means, are we trying to compete for a Big Ten championship and find ourselves in Indianapolis? And if you are, you got to beat the teams that we know are going to be in Indianapolis, right? And that starts. First off, that starts with preparing every single week like your opponent is Ohio State, which, to Jim's credit, he's done. What are you doing to beat Ohio State today? That's the mantra in the locker room, which I love. But beat Rutgers this week, take care of them, and then go into Camp Randall. Make sure you get a W for the first time in 20 years. But more than that, establish yourself. Don't just be satisfied with winning a 21-17 game. Go establish yourself and put down the metal. Just put the pedal to the metal, put it down their throats, and physically assert yourself like another team I know that down south does that, Ohio State.
Right. But yeah, I think this is going to be a question that we can revisit after October 9th when they play after the Nebraska game, because those two are going to be good, decent tests. And despite Nebraska having a crap ton of issues, their defense is still something that you should be concerned about. But that was a tough question though.
And one last thing is, like, we've seen this story before. You just brought it up a second ago, and I think you were talking about the revenge tour season, correct? 2018.
Yeah.
You fell into the trap. Why did you fall into the trap? Because you assumed that they were different, and then they let you down. This team still has the potential to let us down. Let's not pretend they don't. They have that potential. They have that ability to just, at one point, there it is. And it could be as soon as this week. It could be as soon as next week. It could be as soon as 3 weeks from now. Right now, it's one game at a time, and that's kind of where we're at.
And I mean, and what, like 90% of the population, Michigan fans, non-Michigan fans. I mean, we were all talking 8-4, 7-5. So, and we agreed that we could be 4-0 going into Camp Randall. So again,
we did agree with that.
Yeah, we'll revisit this after Camp Randall and before and after Nebraska too, because the best part is yet to come.
Yeah, to be fair, most people, I would say most people, predicted Michigan to be undefeated through 3 games and even 4 games. So again, let's talk after Wisconsin. All right, that's the mailbag. I have some questions for you. You had any questions for me this week?
Let's see. Yeah, but it would be going to. I start with let me ask you this one question before, because I have one question about Michigan and one question about Ohio State. And if I ask you the question about Ohio State, I feel like we're gonna dive into the Buckeyes, and I kind of want to do that. So before we do that, I'll ask you about Michigan.
Say that. How many questions do you have? 2?
2.
Okay, let me start first because I have 3.
Okay.
And then your Ohio State one will be last, and we'll go straight into that.
That's fine. Absolutely. Yep.
First one. How would you handle this stacked / productive running back room?
How would I handle it?
Yeah.
I handle it the way it's been going. I know we both kind of want Son Haskins to be, the 60-40 touch guy, but I think that if it's not broke, don't fix it. And I think right now, slowly but surely, Corum is emerging right now. So with Mike Hart being the running back coach, what I would do is what they're doing. It's not, you haven't seen signs of slowing down. I'll go with what I'm seeing.
What about Donovan Edwards? Would you continue to use him, or would you only use him in the situations where we're up big?
I'd only use him in situations when we're up big. First,
make him earn the playing time.
Yeah, right. I know how you feel about the injury thing, whatever. It's hard. Obviously, you can't predict injuries, whatever. But you get him usage when you are comfortable, or only if you absolutely have to, because You got two backs that are doing it for you already. There is no really any reason to bring in Edwards up to double-digit carries or touches right now. So he's good in his lane.
Cool. Go ahead.
All right, so I'll start out with my Michigan question. If get into Camp Rant,
you cut out. Start over.
okay, so if we get by Rutgers, right? You hear me now?
Yep.
Okay, we get by Rutgers, we get by Wisconsin in similar fashion, the way we have been going, and we get pregame Nebraska. Are you, as a Michigan fan, okay with the pound you in the mouth rushing identity? So obviously we are 4-0, then we get by Wisconsin 5-0, and the rushing identity is what we are. That's just our game. It's working. We can even do it against the big dogs in the Big Ten. Are you okay with that being as your identity?
Just win, baby. True. I'm being serious though.
Yeah.
I'm going to bring this up because I always find it very funny, and I laugh every single time because I do have this in me. So every time you look on Facebook and you follow a Michigan group, a lot of times what will happen is somebody will show up with uniforms, and they're showing the different uniforms, and should we wear this, should we wear that? And every single time, without fail, there is a comment that says, I don't care if you wear pink tutus. Win the game.
Mm-hmm.
That's all I care about. I don't care how we win. I truly don't. I don't care if we play Ohio State and we knee the ball the entire game, but we throw one touchdown pass. I don't care. Win. Just win. And I don't know everybody's big deal about this passing attack shit because, like, who cares? We look good. We look like we can't be stopped. I don't care if you can throw the ball at that point. Like, do I think that it could become an issue? Yes, it could become an issue. But right now, it's not. And until somebody even holds us to 150 yards a game, which, by the way, correct me if I'm wrong, what is Jim Harbaugh's record when running for 100 yards? He's like 29-1. Or 24-1. Like, he literally has lost one game, and I think it was the Michigan State on the muffed punt game. So, like, let alone 300. 300. I'm sorry. Run the ball. It works. Do you disagree?
No, I don't disagree. If we are 1984 BYU, or if we get dubs, I really do not care, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
The thing is like, if this is like a season only type deal, I mean, it probably could have an impact on what kind of wide receivers and tight ends you get in here, whatever. Because that was kind of an immediate question that people were asking the other day.
I heard it, and Harbaugh chirped back. He was not happy with the question.
So yeah, I mean, he's got to expect that he's going to get that conversation thrown at him. But again, just win, baby. And again, if you start now on the flip side, if you start struggling to run the ball against the big boys, if we're in Happy Valley and we can't run the ball, then we got to start throwing it. And Cade or JJ, whoever's in there, whatever's looking uncomfortable, and it looks off, then it's just gonna be a whole 180, So again, it's not hurting it right now, so I guess we're gonna rock with it. But again, in 2 weeks' time, we'll see where we're at.
Yeah, lots of love in the running back room and in the running game and the game plans. But my next question goes away from the running. Going into Big Ten play, who do you feel is the second wide receiver if we're presuming number one is Cornelius Johnson?
I think it's tough between AJ Henning and Baldwin. I'll have to say Henning because they utilize him in both sweeps and in the passing game.
Yeah, I agree.
And even like I mentioned earlier with the punt returns, I think so. I'm gonna have to go with AJ Henning as the number two.
No, I completely agree. completely agree.
And real quick is Sanders still really fell off. You don't really hear from him anymore.
No.
And he was a big contributor last year.
They've used Roman Wilson a little bit.
Yep.
He's been in play. And again, we haven't passed the ball a ton. We're beating this dead horse here, but even Eric All hasn't been getting the targets because of the lack of passing. So I think in a situation where we do have to turn to a passing attack, watch out for Eric All to be like a third or fourth receiver, obviously, because I mean Harbaugh speaks highly of him. So, all right, go ahead with your Ohio State question.
Well, all right. So if I ask you this question, I'd like to get into this because Ohio State, even though I like to troll them a lot, this is we got some stuff to get to. But I'll ask you by starting here. We obviously seen them against Tulsa this past weekend, and we noticed their defense has become a concern, and it's kind of stemming back from last year. More so on the secondary. What do you fix right now if you're Ohio State? If you're Ryan Day, he's already done his what he thinks right now. Well, what would you do? Would you address the quarterback situation first, or do you address your defensive coordinator issue first?
Here's the thing. There's a lot of people out there, Buckeye fans, I'm calling you out, that become prisoner of the moment. And they just sort of assume they're on the same equal playing field as in Alabama, where meaning the next guy up is going to be as good, if not better. And for a while there, that was true. Obviously, they went from Troy Smith, Heisman Trophy winner, to Terrell Pryor, who was highly recruited. Obviously, things didn't go exactly to plan there. I'm probably forgetting somebody. Braxton freaking Miller, who was electric. Then you go into, get ready for this, J.T. Barrett, who is the all-time Big Ten touchdowns leader. Then they go to Cardell Jones on a cup of coffee to win a national championship. And then they go into Dwayne Haskins, and then they go straight to Justin Fields. Sometimes you got to remember, you got to start over sometimes. You're starting basically a redshirt freshman who didn't throw a pass. And a lot of people remember that, Braxton Miller, as great as he was, and you'd be hard-pressed to find a Buckeye fan that didn't love Braxton Miller. He wasn't a great passer his freshman and sophomore year. That takes time, obviously, and the Big Ten is a very competitive division. And you've played 3 games, one against a Big Ten opponent, Minnesota, who we assume is better than last year, one against Oregon, and one against Tulsa. Let's relax. Like, just freaking relax for 5 seconds that you didn't win every game by 50. Like, I just think it's being overstated. I think Ohio State is very good. Do I think they're good enough to beat Oregon? Obviously they weren't. But do I think they could have beat Oregon if this game was played 3 weeks from now? Maybe. Yeah, maybe. Or at the end of the year? Yeah, I think so. Unfortunately, it came early. I think Ohio State's going to be just fine. Defensively, quarterback situation. That's where I keep telling these Buckeye fans. I don't know why. Like, everybody's like jumping ship. You got to let this kid get live reps. You know, you have to.
So you would address your coordinator first before making a rash decision and going. I
don't think there's anything wrong with the coordinator. It's just it's early. Do I think their defense has been great? No. For me personally, I need at least another couple games. I haven't seen enough. You open the season with Big Ten play against correct me if I'm wrong, a 6th-year quarterback, Tanner Morgan. I think he was playing his 6th year because of the COVID eligibility. He at least was a 5th year. The dude's been in college football forever, okay? Then you're playing a top 10 team in Oregon, and then you're playing Tulsa. And I understand Tulsa's quarterback did light them up, so I get that. But I don't know. I just think that I think it's overblown. I think Ohio State's, they'll be just fine. They got Akron week, who they'll destroy, and obviously
And then Rutgers. Yeah.
and then Rutgers, who they'll probably destroy.
At least this is happening right now to where they can kind of maybe retool or do their adjustments. But yeah, dude, like, piggybacking off what you were saying, like Ohio State fans, I mean, they're so used to winning, at least especially in the Big Ten.
Yeah, yeah,
I mean, you gotta realize that not everything is overnight, and obviously college football right now is win now mentality, and
yeah.
they've been, let's be honest, Ohio State's been completely spoiled with quarterbacks in the last decade and a half, and I think outside of Smith, they had like one season, or they had half a season where they were going between Joe Bowserman and like
I did leave him out. Yeah.
and I can't think of the quarterback that they did run with for a minute. Either Tim or Todd Beckman. I can't remember.
Yes, Todd Beckman.
Okay. And then 2011, the last time Michigan beat them, Ohio State was almost dead last in pass efficiency behind like Army, who obviously runs a triple option.
With freshman Braxton Miller.
With freshman Braxton Miller. And, I mean, on the ground, Braxton Miller did work in that game anyway. But going to my points here with Tulsa, and now if I'm answering my own question, what I fix first is I'd retool, maybe not demote the defensive coordinator like they did, but I'd retool at least some play calling things, maybe even, I don't know. But they gave up 428 pass yards to Tulsa, 500 yards total. They only had 2 sacks on 54 dropbacks. Their offense, obviously, again, running a true freshman quarterback, you're going to have bumps and bruises. I mean, Jake Fromm in Georgia had a special year. I think he got to the SEC championship game, but, not every freshman quarterback can have the limelight, especially in a top tier program like this. I think if the defense was playing at like Urban Meyer level, I think you wouldn't even be talking about CJ Stroud's job right now. Trayvon Henderson rushed for 277 yards against Tulsa, so you have a run game, and I think he broke Archie Griffin's freshman record for single game yardage, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
Now on their defense against Tulsa, they did have 10 pass disruptions, so you have some bright spots, you have some things to build off of, but to throw in the towel and start burning couches, metaphorically speaking, is unfair. Now, Kerry Coombs, who they demoted, who was their defensive coordinator, he was in Tennessee with Mike Vrabel for 2 seasons in the NFL, and he had back-to-back years where he had top 10 secondaries with passing yardage. So he's been proven in the NFL. And so now he's been demoted, and now Matt Barnes, who was Ohio State's secondary coach, is now calling the plays, and he was calling plays for this game, and obviously it didn't matter. So Ryan Day has now said that this is what we're going with forward. Kerry Coombs is not the play caller. He's not the defensive coordinator. I think he's still the defensive coordinator, but he's not making the play calls. He's now on the ground, and Matt Barnes is up in the booth. Matt Barnes is the only coach on the staff with coordinator experience. Kerry Coombs was his first coordinator's gig. So I don't know if it's kind of unfair, but it's kind of understandable. Again, I think it's just a little rash. So going into this Akron, Rutgers, and maybe Maryland. I mean, Maryland is still someone you can't overlook, but at least these games are happening right now to where
I think Maryland's 3-0.
Are they? Still can't overlook them, but obviously you have the talent to surpass them.
Yeah.
So I mean, obviously they took Ohio State to the wire a few years ago, but just Ohio State guys, just relax, okay? And maybe it's easier for us to say that because we've been through so much chaos in Ann Arbor. But yeah, I've made my point. It's just it's something that it's not going to be an overnight fix, fellas.
To answer your question, do I think it was all right to move on from the defensive coordinator? Yeah, I think that's probably all right. Do I think it's all right to move on from the quarterback if you wanted to? Sure. Do I think both are overreactions? Yes, I do. Yes, I do. I know this is unfamiliar for you, but like not you specifically. I'm talking about Ohio State. a couple of years ago when Urban left and Haskins went to the NFL, I predicted a step back for Ohio State. I did not realize that Ryan Day was as good as Urban Meyer. And I did not realize that Justin Fields was light years better than Dwayne Haskins. Otherwise, I would not have predicted that. This is finally that year where I feel like Ryan Day is just going to have a little bit of Big Ten growing pains because we're finally starting to see these Urban Meyer kids fall out of the program.
Mm-hmm.
You know? And it's like, what are you? What do you have? And he's got some kids, obviously. He's recruited the best wide receiver room in the entire country. And I believe Chris Olave went without a catch this past weekend, which, I mean, that's not great. I think ultimately they need to get something working. There's a lot of people calling for the backups, quarterback room. I think everybody just kind of assumed that the next guy that came in was going to be Justin Fields. And I'm sorry, Ohio State. Here's a sad reality. You're not Alabama. You're not. Even Clemson's getting that harsh reality that they're not Alabama. Clemson went from Deshaun Watson to Kelly Bryant to Trevor Lawrence. And now all of a sudden they thought they had another guy, and it ain't it. So
Right.
quarterbacks are not easy to find. Michigan has
been
searching for one since, depends on who you ask. You could say Chad Henne or you could say Denard, but regardless, they haven't had good quarterback play. So, man, is that a wrap?
Yeah, but I'd like to point out that this weekend you got a couple big games.
Oh yeah, top 25. We gotta go a little bit over top 25 here. Go ahead with your big game.
But Notre Dame, Wisconsin playing at Soldier Field. That's the number 12-18 matchup, and
huge.
Despite Nebraska being unranked, I think Michigan State playing in Lincoln is going to be huge too.
Who wins Notre Dame, Nebraska, or Notre Dame, Wisconsin, and who do you want to win?
I kind of want Wisconsin to win. One, because I absolutely cannot stand Notre Dame whatsoever, but I also want Wisconsin to be at their best when we play them in Camp Randall. I normally don't root for conference opponents, or if I'm in the NFL, I don't want anyone in the AFC West to win a game. I don't care. I don't care if it means better wins down the road. I don't want to see you win a bowl game. So I want Wisconsin to win just because they're playing Notre Dame. If they were playing, Texas A&M or something like that, and in Atlanta for the neutral game site, I'd be like, let's go Aggies. So I'm pulling for Wisconsin here. Notre Dame has had its struggles, and a lot of people are saying Jack Cohn, which was a Wisconsin quarterback, is now transferred, is playing better than Ian Book did last year. And I don't know if I agree with that or not. But it'll be a good battle.
Yeah, I'm excited for it too. I've never been the type that pulls. I'm going to root for the Big Ten, but in this case, because we're playing in the following week, I want them to win. I want them to have another win under their belt so that they look as good as possible. Rolling into the top 25 here, we'll go down the list. I'll name some notables. So you got Alabama, Georgia, Oregon, Oklahoma, first four. What do you think? Agree, disagree? Oklahoma has looked sluggish.
Yeah, I don't really have anything to disagree, because from 4 till about 8, one right there, Iowa, Penn State, Texas A&M, Cincinnati, Clemson, wherever. I think everyone right there is pretty neck and neck. I mean, no one's really asserted themselves forward. I mean, it's still early, and but yeah, go ahead.
Cincinnati. So we'll go Iowa, Penn State, Texas A&M, Cincinnati. That's 5 through 8. Cincinnati has Notre Dame coming up here in the next, I believe, 2 weeks. I think they play Wisconsin and then Cincinnati, or then Wisconsin, another team, and then Cincinnati. But they got them coming up very soon. Watch out for that. Cincinnati, I think, has earned where they are. I was very impressed with their win at Indiana last week.
Yep. Yeah, they did. They have a bye week this week, so the next game they got is at Notre Dame.
Yeah, that's crazy that Notre Dame's got that. Matter of fact, Notre Dame's schedule, if you're a Notre Dame fan, their schedule is crazy. They have tons of ranked opponents they're playing this year.
Finally.
Yeah. Following up after 8, this is when you start to get into some losses here. So you got Clemson 2-1, Ohio State 2-1, Florida 2-1. I was kind of shocked that Florida was able to make a game out of that Bama game, but it's not enough to really do anything with them. Where are you at, Clemson, Ohio State, Florida? Sound about right?
Yeah, Clemson, Ohio State is not really impressing a whole lot of people. So them being 2-1 right there is fair. Florida, I thought they were going to get their doors blown off by Alabama. They kept it really close to the very end there. So
Yeah.
Florida's probably going to creep back in that top 10, in the coming weeks. And so yeah.
Notre Dame sitting at 3-0 at 12. They got Wisconsin this week. Ole Miss sitting at 3-0. I'm not sure who they're playing this week, but that's a weird. You don't see Ole Miss 3-0 too often. Iowa State, their only losses to Iowa, who's number 5 in the country. Birmingham Young 3-0. Arkansas 3-0. They're playing. Arkansas's playing a ranked opponent this week. I forget who it is. It might be A&M.
Come on, internet.
I think it's A&M. Coastal Carolina 3-0, and then all of a sudden you got Wisconsin, Michigan at 18-19, and then Michigan State at 20. So tons of Big Ten teams in the top 25 ranked. North Carolina, Fresno State, Auburn, UCLA, and Texas and Kansas State. So lots of teams that are still 3-0. Lots of football to be played. Anybody left out that you think should be in, or anybody that's just way too high that you think should be lower, or anybody that's too low that you think should be higher?
I don't disagree with it. However, UCLA jumped 8 spots and then they dropped back 11 spots after their loss to Fresno State. Fresno State, impressive. I mean, who was Fresno State? They almost beat Oregon, and they absolutely torched UCLA's defense, right? They almost beat Oregon, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, Michigan State's 3-0, and they got a good running back, and they got a quarterback that's playing pretty efficient right now. So going into the season, I thought the Big Ten was going to be pretty competitive, and it's looking like it. I mean, I know I was kind of hoping Indiana would have been a little bit better than what they've been showing out. But man, if Wisconsin keeps winning and Michigan State keeps winning, when they play Michigan, man, if Michigan keeps their everything intact, man, there's going to be some monumental games. Monumental.
Yeah, I mean, my hope is that Michigan can hold this pace and be a threat and give us a glimmer of hope that we can be in Indianapolis this year and have game day come to Ann Arbor a couple times and be a team that the whole country's talking about. That's obviously the goal. So time will tell. It's only week 4. We're 3-0. But I think that's a wrap. Good stuff.
Absolutely,
buddy. We will see you guys back next week, hopefully talking about a win over Rutgers and how we can get the W at Camp Randall in Wisconsin. So we'll see you guys next time, and go Blue.
Go Blue, bud.